we go. All right. Another episode of the Square and Compass podcast, but this is a part of a series I'm doing where I am discussing the upcoming June 12th Esotericon 2021. And you will be able to find the link to purchase tickets in the description to this video. And I'll maybe leave one in the comments as well. I've got my tickets. I can't wait to attend. I've also had the chance to connect with a few of the presenters. Ben Wallace has already been on the podcast. His episode would have been out just before this one. It's going to be a terrific time. So with that, we have a stacked house. We have brothers or brethren, Kevin Horman, Joe Martinez, Jason Richards, and John Ruark. So thank you so much for being here. Let's start with, let's start with why we are here. Anybody wants to jump in, go ahead. What is Esotericon, and what can anybody, be it a Freemason or not a Freemason, gain via attendance?
So Esotericon is, at its very foundation, a chance for like-minded individuals to get together and nerd out on philosophy and mystery. And we started out as an offshoot of some of the other very popular Masonic conferences that have been around, whether it be Masonicon from the folks up in Ezekiel Bates up in Massachusetts and New Hampshire for next year. Excited about that. As well as, John and I hosted TMRCon for the 300th anniversary of Freemasonry back in 2017. And we realized that there was a big gap in our personal Masonic experiences around the esoteric nature of the mysteries of the fraternity and outside of the fraternity. And so it was really Joe and Kevin who had this idea for, well, why don't we do something specifically related to esoteric philosophy? And then John and I kind of said, ooh, we can do this too. So it really is Joe and Kevin's brainchild. But it's for folks who love mystery and to love mysticism and philosophy. And it's not for folks who come to lodge for green beans.
Before we talk about the mysterious and esoteric aspect of the craft, the technological aspect of the craft, this event, Esotericon, as with Masonicon, which I attended, and I had Ezekiel Bates Lodge on the podcast, is taking place virtually this year, as are many Masonic events. Freemasonry in Ontario has been almost exclusively virtual for the last year and a half. For you guys as organizers, what has it been like, organizing an event like this in the virtual space? And also, do you expect that, as vaccination rates increase, as we move into the future, do you expect to continue for Freemasonry in general and Esotericon to have to remain in the virtual space?
So let me emphatically answer the first part of your question, which is no, we don't intend Esotericon to remain in the virtual space in the future. So this is our third year that we've had Esotericon. The first year was completely in person. This was 2019. It was way before COVID. And we had intended to do 2020. We had already started selling tickets in November of 2019. So this is way before the pandemic started and things got locked down. So it wasn't until about February or March where we actually pivoted and turned 2020 into an all virtual event. And that was a complete goat rope, trying to, get 150 plus people to go from coming up, in person to switching to, you know, an online format. But I think we did it quite successfully, not knowing what we didn't know back then. And then this year, you know, with all the uncertainty and planning, we decided to do it virtually. But I think I speak for all four of the organizers here that we have zero intentions of doing an all virtual event next year. It kind of, for an event like this, that is really a niche market in things like Freemasonry and other initiatic orders. You kind of lose something doing the event in an all virtual format. You miss the social aspect, and you miss the conversational aspect that you get of going to an esoteric presentation or listening to Ben Wallace or Angel Millar, and then going back out in the dining hall and having a 3-hour conversation about what you just listened to. You don't get that in the Zoom format. So again, I don't think anybody's going to disagree with me here when we say we very much look forward to being all in person next year, and, you know, for years to come.
Yeah, just with any particular mystery school or initiatic experience, there's a connectional aspect that happens when you're face to face. And so, you know, we've always wanted Esotericon to be, you know, its own sort of initiatic experience with that deep connectional bond that occurs between the folks who attend.
And to kind of riff off of Joe, you know, last year we started and we'll be doing this year, you know, trying to do kind of special events during the day. So last year we had tarot readings for the attendees that was done all virtually. And then this year, of course, we're doing the natal chart readings, which, you know, I don't think anybody here would disagree with me saying that, you know, activities like those are much better, I think, done in person. Obviously, given the situation with COVID last year and this year and the run up as we were planning it, you know, our decision was made for us, right? But trying to, you know, doing something like that or whatever we're going to do next year, we haven't figured that out. You know, they are events which lend much better to being done in person.
I will say, though, the move to virtual probably brought about one of the most anticipated parts of the conference, which is the swag bags that we send out to the ticket holders. Because what happened is we charge tickets, and our entire goal for the conference, and I don't think anyone will dispute me on this, our entire goal is to break even. So we don't want to make money, and we certainly don't want to lose money. So as we did last year, we'll do this again this year. Any money that we raise above our operating costs is donated fully to charity. So we were faced with the idea that, okay, you know, we factor in, it's a self-funding conference, so we factor in estimated costs for a venue, for catering lunch, things of those natures, or things of that nature. And so we're like, okay, do we just give everybody, like, you know, an 80% discount, or do we find something else that makes us really, really unique and really fun? And that's where we turn to the idea of, what if we, as the conference organizers, curated individual packs and bags for every person who didn't want that refund, so that it's almost like a loot crate or a loot box for esoteric items. And that has become one of the most fun parts of the entire planning process, is figuring out what goes in the swag bags, and then seeing, like, they started arriving this past week, and seeing Facebook and social media explode with people going, oh, I got this, I got this, I got this. It's just, you know, and that was born very much out of the necessity of finding our, you know, something to make a virtual conference just as exciting as, in some parts at least, as, you know, going to vendor tables at Ezekiel Bates.
Yeah, and it was just to that point, we had asked, just like Jason said, we had already sold a healthy number of tickets before the lockdown started. So we asked all of the ticket holders, hey, would you like a full refund? Would you like a partial refund, you know, just to cover our costs to do things online? Or do you want us to keep all the money and send you a whole bunch of really well-selected and, like Jason said, curated stuff, you know, in addition to a t-shirt and a lapel pin and all the things that Masons need to go on their day. I think I think I can count on one hand with fingers left over how many people said, no, I don't want anything. Just give me a full refund. It was really minimal, the number of people that didn't want to participate and get into the swag bag thing.
So the thing about, in my experience and in my, doing this podcast, the explosion of Freemasonry into the virtual space and the opportunities that it presents to, augment the craft has been a really interesting conversation. So, for example, here in Ontario, we have our Grand Lodge coming up. Every year, the communication takes place in Toronto, and voting has always been in person. And if you ever seen a map of Ontario, trying to get from Kenora, which is in a different time zone, the furthest kind of jurisdiction, to Toronto is pretty much impossible. And so there's always, complaints about, and I say complaints, but, rightful concerns brought up about, the inability for brethren to have a vote at Grand Lodge if they're in a northern jurisdiction. And so this year it's completely virtual. And a lot of Grand Lodge officers and candidates are very happy about that because it franchises brethren, who just couldn't travel to Grand Lodge due to expense and time. It would just be too hard. But, the understanding is, a in-person Grand Lodge will come back, hopefully 2022, and you will see that happening again. But the in-person portion will be smaller because you'll have a greater number of people voting online while also maintaining in-person activities and in-person events, which I think presents opportunities to actually move Grand Lodge around, because if you have less people attending, down from say 500 hotel rooms, to only 300 or 400, you can actually bring it to some smaller towns. So I guess I bring that up to say, even though, and I knock on wood, I hope I can attend an Esotericon in person in the future. Do you ever think that or just for any of these events, any Masonic cons, do you suspect that a lot of Grand Lodges and Masonic events will use the virtual space to augment in-person physical meetings?
Not in Virginia.
I was gonna say I was gonna break the ice just to be the bad guy in the room, and then everybody else will chime in because they'll feel calmer about it.
And then Jason shattered it. Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think let's break that up into two separate questions, right? Because the explosion, to your point, of the ability to do masonry online or in a virtual format is different than, to me, the administration and running of Grand Lodges in an online format, right? Because these three other brothers on the call with me, we all have a very specific definition of what we consider Freemasonry to be, right? And that was one of the reasons why we all started Esotericon together, right? Because we didn't want something like a Grand Lodge session where it's just the droning of business that all could be handled in a 10-page PDF that's emailed to you. We wanted something very niche and very specific. And to Jason's point, that's why we weren't like Masonicon in Massachusetts or Masonicon in Chicago or Texas Masonicon, because they cater to everybody. They cater to people that are interested in history and people that want to buy a bunch of swag and people that are interested in ritual and people that are interested in the nuance aspects of the craft. We were very specific in our focus. It's like we want everything that has to do with Esotericon to be of an esoteric nature, right? Which is that really bad word in Freemasonry and nobody likes to use it. And 90% of the people don't know what it means, So we're here to basically take this concept out of the closet, no pun intended, and show people that, the word esoteric, it's not as bad of a word as you think it means. And in fact, all of the stuff you do in Freemasonry, from, putting on an apron to sitting down to getting ready to listen to the minutes, it's all esoteric. You just don't realize it, right? Because you're not paying attention. But to your point, I think, to the other half of your question, I think more Grand Lodges should probably do something in an online format. I think they'd get more participation. And at least I've been to Grand Lodge sessions in a couple of jurisdictions, not all of them. So some may be way more fun than others, but my general experience has been, you get a good 2 days of really mundane business that, again, you don't need the pomp and circumstance for. So why not, turn it into a seminar and allow, all your thousands of constituents to attend. But like I said, I don't want to speak for everybody on the call, so I'll shut up.
As I
Yes.
unmute myself, there we go.
So one more quick thing, Cameron. I think the success of Esotericon, in my view, is almost paradoxical, given that when you talk about esotericism, it's something that is not available to a large portion of the population. It's not for general public's comprehension, and so the idea that we've seen over the past 3 years the numbers of folks who want to attend just ballooning, and it's just it is funny in some ways because again, to Joe's point, we're catering to a very niche subsection of the population, and not just of Masonry, because especially this year, we are not a Masonic event, and we're moving away from being a Masonic affiliated event, because there's a lot of esotericists that fall outside of Masonic membership. But it is interesting that we're getting very popular, but we're almost not meant to be.
Well, I think that goes to something that we discussed, Jason, when you were on my podcast, and it's something I thought of when Joe mentioned, earlier he used the phrase niche. The idea of it being a niche topic. I've thought for a long time now, and one thing I'm trying to do with this podcast is I think that the one thing that Freemasonry needs is and we need to be looking at is getting, for lack of a better term, fans, instead of focusing on membership. So I'll use the example of cooking, because I can't cook, and any Mason who was a member when I was junior warden can attest to that, right? I can't cook to shit, but I enjoy cooking shows, right? And a lot of chefs are, they're huge celebrities, and they, the people watching aren't out there cooking themselves. A lot of times they just watch it because they find it entertaining or interesting. You could use MMA as another example, right? The percentage, when mixed martial arts, when UFC puts out a show about the fighters, when they do a pay-per-view, they're not advertising to other fighters, they're advertising to the general public. And then, as percentages go, so, you get 5,000 people in an arena to watch McGregor, Poirier, whatever it is. Of those 5,000, maybe 1% actually decide that they want to take the next step and they join a local gym. And of that, 1% then become the next, McGregor and Poirier. And so I think that's the thing. I think the biggest mistake Freemasonry made, in my opinion, over the last, say, since the 1950s, is there was this idea that we're just going to communicate within ourselves. And there are some things that we can and we should only communicate to ourselves, the secrets, the grips, those things matter. But the overarching philosophies of the craft, the benefits of Freemasonry, not just to the members, but the benefits of having a Masonic lodge in a community, the benefits that a temple brings to a community, right? Those are things worth discussing. And I very much hope that Masons, for example, get something of use from this podcast. But I truly believe that non-Masons can benefit from this podcast as well, and other episodes I've done. And then, a certain percentage of those may decide to look into joining the craft. But, so if a lodge, for example, decided to start a podcast itself, like the Ezekiel Bates podcast or whatever it is, the Lodge X podcast, I've only been doing this for a while. I'm not making a ton of money, but I'm making some money
Fort
at it.
Worth 140.
there you go. If the lodge itself starts a podcast, they could theoretically go on Patreon, they can do all these things, and they can, generate income for an interest in the lodge that can go to, help the buildings, help the membership, put on more events. Like I suspect, and I don't have the evidence yet, but I'm working on it. I suspect that esotericism and masonry is not quite as niche a topic as people think. I think that there is a general public that would be interested in supporting it and learning more about it, even if they don't necessarily want to be masons themselves, if that makes any sense.
That was a super interesting route you went down. And I wanted to chime in first because you brought up a really interesting point, Brother Cameron, when you talked about meeting fans and the fan analogy that you brought. I found that super interesting. And just to throw my 2 cents in onto that conversation, I think for me, Freemasonry is, I think, the exact opposite of the spectator sport, right? But to your point, I think we do a absolutely shit job in advertising or marketing what our message is. Not so much to get more clicks or to get more people to go through the door, but you go from lodge to lodge to lodge. If you ask 10 different people what Freemasonry is, if you ask 10 different Freemasons what Freemasonry is, they'll give you a different answer, right? Because our identity has become so mishmashed in that collective membership drive that boomed for 60 years, right? So to some people, we're a social club and that's all we are. For some people, we're a charity and that's all we are. For some people, we're a fraternal organization, akin to a college fraternity. For some, we're a symbolic representation of what a mystery school was. So we're all these things to all these different people. And at least me personally, I feel like we've lost our identity. And as a result of that, everything that we do, including participating in the community, has gotten watered down. Right. So for me, my stance is, I don't think Freemasonry is a spectator sport to where we see people, to your point, become fans about it. But I think it'd be really awesome if people became fans about Freemasonry because of all the ancillary things we start doing, because we take the one thing that we're supposed to be doing and do it well, which is to take a person who is profane and put him through an initiatic process and make him a better person than he was the day before, right? Then all the magic and the gravy comes as a result of that. You will naturally become a more charitable person with your time and your money and your energy. You will automatically want to become more involved in your community and help other people become better people as well, right? That famous bumper sticker that, which I think is awful, of making good people better. You'll have a more fraternal bond. You'll want to be more social with people, all as a result of going through that experience.
You'll want to invest in your kids and the groups that they find relevant to their personal growth. Like, yes.
And
Yes.
I think,
Yeah.
and to
Go
run
ahead.
off that, I think, sorry, Cameron, I didn't mean to interrupt. I think Freemasonry links very well to the concept of Esotericon, right? Those Masons out there who are Scottish Rite Masons, especially, there are a lot of esoteric topics within, and I mean, Pike wrote a lot about esoteric topics, right? He has his book Esoterica. But when you dig into morals and dogma, there's a lot of those esoteric topics in there that, it gets you go through your 2-day or 1-day reunion, whatever, to get to the 32nd degree. And and we just gloss over those topics a little bit. And then, those who kind of, my personal experience was I hopped into the Master Craftsman program and just, I'm reading those books and doing those tests. I'm like, holy crap, like there's a lot more here that I wasn't aware of, that, we give about 5 minutes of attention to in a 2-day reunion. Like, why are we not talking about this stuff? And that's essentially what's brought me to where we are now with Esotericon. So yeah, I think these topics, Masonry and the esoteric lend really well to each other.
Yeah, and just to build off of that, when you talked about kind of the MMA example, that MMA isn't for everyone, and that's okay. And then those who really want to get in, and that's what drew my support behind Esotericon, because that's the part I enjoy about Masonry. While the fraternal side is great, getting to see your brothers and all that and help each other out. Then there's also, when you're actually in lodge, I'm not there to listen to bills being read. I'm sorry, it sounds trite and it is the cliche, but I want to hear what's going to make me better, right? That's what we're here to do, to make ourselves better. And so I like to work my mind a little bit, put some folds in my brain.
You like to break a mental sweat too.
Yes, break up a mental sweat. So that's what, as we were kind of building out the past 3 years of Esotericon, that's what I like about this, is because, like, what would I want in an esoteric conference, right? Where I don't have to worry about ritual. I don't have to worry about titles. I don't, that's a big, huge thing, right? Where from day one, even when we were in person, we said, there's no titles here, because we're not gonna let most worshipful grand muckety buck get a seat at the table. No, we're all here for one purpose, and it's not to say how great we are. It's really just the opposite. It's here to learn. So that's keep carrying that forward. Now in our 3rd year, really want to focus on how can I take a variety of different concepts and topics, put some really smart people in the same room, even virtual room, together, so that you can fire some neurons. You can say, "Hi, I never thought about the craft from this directive before," or, now that we're not really trying to be a Masonic owned organization, any other things that we've been reading or researching or studying, like there's so many areas to explore. And it's liberating, because you don't have to be a Mason to attend. So we have women that show up, we have people from other jurisdictions that aren't recognized show up, and that's fine, because it's not a Masonic conference, and that's the whole point.
No, and just to put a cherry on top of that, because John kind of hit the nail on the head there. I don't think we were never, believe me, from the location where we live and the jurisdictions that we're near, we were never the popular kids. We were always the rabble rousers.
Still are.
We are, but we never wanted to be officially tied to a lodge or a jurisdiction or a body or something, because we never wanted anyone to come in and tell us what we were allowed to do and what we were not allowed to do. Right. Some of your other Masonic conferences do get the support from their lodge and their Grand Lodge, and and they stay within those confines. But especially for us, I think I can speak for everybody when I say, for me, the signs, the grips, and the words aren't really the secrets of Freemasonry. Those are just how you get in the door. But again, those secrets of Freemasonry for me, and I think for Kevin, maybe John, and sometimes Jason, are those universal things that that other people do quite equally as well as Freemasonry does. So that's why we never wanted to be wedded to, okay, we can only have guys in here who are Master Masons, and we're going to check dues cards. So we kind of broke out of that mold fairly quickly, and I think we're more successful as a result.
Yeah, I mean, case in point, for the past, last year and this year, we have special breakout rooms for the ladies who are in attendance. And it's, and that's taking place during lunch. So it's not taking away from any of the other presentations, but we're trying very, very hard to remove that rank and that bias and really be open to anyone who's seeking, and in a way that Masonry can't or won't.
I think it's that Masonry won't, and I think that's the challenge, right? And I like, there's always, even with this podcast, with almost any endeavor that's being taken on, right? There's always the tension between, do you kind of strike out on your own, quote unquote, and be independent, and you have the freedom of independence. And, there's a disclaimer, right, in every video, the description, this video does not represent the opinions of Grand Lodge of Ontario, or Grand Lodge of Canada, the province of Ontario. do you be independent and have the freedom of that, versus do you link up or connect yourself with a existing Masonic body, whether it be a Grand Lodge or a lodge, and try to go at it that way, where you have less freedom, but maybe you have more resources to draw from, depending on who you're working with. Like, that's a tension that you've probably with the virtual space, right? That has always existed, but even more so now with the virtual space and with Grand Lodges trying to figure out like how to regulate social media. And you have brothers, going all half-cocked, saying a whole bunch of random nonsense online, or even just, they may put something in relatively innocuous and then another brother takes offense. Like the freedom versus the resources that a Grand Lodge or a Masonic body provides. That's always that tension. I don't see it going anywhere. Anybody can guess based on this podcast. Believe the secret is more the independent route, but I can definitely appreciate why there's some hesitation amongst brethren.
I think that John said it best, actually, and I'm going to be very honest with you when I say, when we planned the first Esotericon, if we got 20 people to show up, we were going to consider that a success, right? We didn't, and John said it exactly right. We wanted to put together, we had just, most of us had just come back from Ezekiel Bates Masonicon 2018, and we came back down and said,
Everyone except Kevin.
Except Kevin, he didn't
Sorry,
go.
call him out.
Yep.
Thanks. Appreciate it. Love you, Jason.
We came back and said, we need to do something like this for ourselves. And we all want to do just strictly esotericism, right? Esoteric topics and stuff. And then we honestly thought about it. We were like, listen, if we get 10 or 15 or 20 people to show up, that's a success. When we sold out the place, we rented my lodge at the time. When we sold out the place, we were completely shocked. We were like, holy shit, we can't believe we packed this place up. And we were trying to figure out how to fit more people in the room because people wanted to keep buying tickets. So
yeah,
I think it's where you're coming from with that. But just to touch on your other point, when we were going to Ezekiel Bates Masonicon in person, they would get 2,000, 2,500 people to walk in and out throughout the day, right? So they needed their lodge's support. They needed Grand Lodge oversight and management, because they were treating it as, hey, come learn about Freemasonry and come to this event and spend all weekend with us. So it was a much more enterprise level event than what we were trying to do. So yeah, there's definitely both sides to that coin.
I mean, Esotericon's a startup. It's we said, okay, let's
lean startup, Jason.
It's a lean startup. Oh my goodness. So we said, what would, if we were kings for a day, what would we want? And how do we put that together so that we scale it up or down as we sell tickets and as we get interest? Again, so that we break even at the end of the day.
Build the budget.
Yeah, and if more people, it's what happened the first year. As more and more folks bought tickets, we added more stuff in. Tarot readings, tarot cards in the swag bags, like, all sorts of stuff. And we just kept it flexible, and really, in a way, the ticket holders ended up, being the biggest decision makers and how much was offered to them during that day. And that's still the case.
And to go back to what we were talking about earlier, I think, from year one, the biggest feedback we got from attendees, especially the Masonic attendees, was, this is great. This is something I'm not getting out of my Masonic experience, which, given that that's why the four of us started this, really hit home for us, and, made us feel good that we were putting this together. But yeah, I mean, this stuff is not being talked about. We talk about it a little bit here and there, but only in passing. So the hunger is out there for these topics, and nobody was filling that niche until we came along.
So what is the next steps for Esotericon? So we're recording this on the 6th of June, and
12th.
this should be up on.
Oh,
Sorry.
no, we're recording this episode on the 6th.
Yes, we're recording this episode on the 6th.
I
And
have
this should
terrible
be-
manners. I'm sorry.
This should be up on the 9th is when I will post this. So, and like I said before, there's a link in the description for where you can purchase tickets for this event. It's virtual. You don't even need to wear pants, which is always a positive in any situation. So after people purchase their tickets, whether it's Masons, non-Masons, men, women, whatever it is, purchase your tickets. Do they then receive what's the next steps? They get a Zoom link? Should they be checking their emails for that? How do they log on? All that good stuff.
Sure. So yeah, we've been pretty awesome, I think, at keeping people informed. Anybody who purchases a ticket gets on a MailChimp list, and then our Facebook page gets smattered with updates all the time. But yeah, everybody who's bought a ticket automatically gets registered. They get a Zoom link and, you know, a nice, pretty welcome email that's all branded and stuff. And we pretty much pester people the last few days up until the morning of, just so people can't say, oh, how do I do this? How do I log in? You know, we don't have those issues. And last year it was, again, setting it up in a really short amount of time. I think it went off without a hitch. Everybody was able to log in. We didn't have any drama, any issues, and it went really well. So yeah, once you decide to purchase a ticket, yeah, you'll be inundated with emails from John and Jason and Joe.
Now talk about the difference, Joe, between like a Zoom webinar versus just a normal Zoom meeting.
Yeah, absolutely. So we decided last year to go with the webinar format for the primary reason that all of us have sat in on 100 people Zoom meetings, and you know, where you have 20% of the people that don't know.
Hey, so what are you wearing? What's going on?
Turn off their damn microphone.
Hey,
so-
hot mic.
Yeah.
Could you guys please mute your mics? We're trying to have a conference here.
Or your Great Dane walks into the room.
What's for dinner? Yeah, so we don't want any of that. You know, people that don't know how to use their microphones or how to mute them. So it's webinar format. So that means the panelists and the admins are the ones who do the talking. We will turn on the mics in between breaks and for, you know, little breakout sessions and things like that. But it usually runs a lot more cleanly than just an open Zoom meeting where everybody is screaming into the microphone. So.
And you know, there's a downside to doing that too. It's not as organic of a feel, but we really had to weigh the pros and cons and the cost benefit of giving ourselves more control for a better overall quality experience, especially with the speakers, as opposed to giving folks greater freedom to be on an 8-hour Zoom call without pants, with, you know, a hot mic that they're not paying attention to.
And the Esotericon itself, so people are logged in, and you know, it's the webinar format. Obviously, you guys have a lot of information on the website in terms of the speakers and the topics, but just generally speaking, what can people expect when they take part in this year's Esotericon? Both, you know, what can they expect as a Mason if they're doing it, but also what can they expect if they're not a Mason, and what benefits will receive in both cases?
I don't think it's a mutually exclusive benefit. I think being a Mason means that you're involved in a mystery school. Non-Masons might have similar initiatic experiences that they've taken part in outside of Masonry. I dare say non-Masons who are attracted to this particular conference almost have to have some involvement in some sort of mystery school or institution. I mean, we have a number of non-Masons who have come out every year, and they're involved in their own search for truth. So I would say the benefit here overlaps between the Mason and the non-Mason. I think for the Mason, you can expect to have your horizons brightened a little bit. I think there's a there's a tendency in American Freemasonry, in particular, to look at everything from a Christian worldview and a Christian lens. So being able to come in here and be exposed to other, global worldviews or mystery schools outside of, the Christian sphere of influence, I think is something that folks will be able to gain. And, and that's a good way to broaden your horizons and get out of kind of, we talk about provincial masonry, where it's the guys who have just been in their lodge. They have no idea how masonry on the other side of the world or the other side of the state works. This is a way for people to break out of kind of their provincial spirituality and really entertain ideas that are new and exciting and thought-provoking. And so for Masons, I think that's a huge value proposition. For non-Masons, I think it's a good way to connect with other like-minded individuals, because you might be studying this on your own, but really unsure of who to connect with. And so this is a way to form bonds and connections as well if you're a non-Mason.
I really like what you said. It goes back to my point that I've made, and I kind of, one of my Masonic hobby horses, right? You have, non-Masons who have attended every year, and it sounds like that number is growing. And I just think that's an awesome thing, because it indirectly anyways, it promotes the craft, or promotes Masons doing good things, because even though it's not a Masonic event, it's of Masonic origin, for lack of a better term, right? It's came from that. I just, the equivalent I can think of is so the Windsor Masonic Temple, my favorite place in the world, is 100 years old this year. And if you go back and you read the stories from the Windsor Star in 1921, when it was being built and when the cornerstone came in, there were thousands of people, unless, the Windsor Star was engaging in some exaggeration. But based on other openings I've seen at the time, it seems consistent. There were thousands of people to see the turning of the first turning of the sod, to see the laying of the cornerstone, right? And most of those people who attended weren't Masons. They were just excited about the Masonic Temple being built, because they recognized, it was one of the things that put their town on the map. There's going to be lots of opportunities for banquets. Business owners were there because they could sell things to the temple for refreshment. You had people who cared about this thing being in the city, even if they themselves weren't Masons. And I think, seeing non-Masons attending an Esotericon, for example, it just shows that people care about these topics and these things. And Masonry is one way, not the only way, to expand on that. And so just branching out to non-Masons and saying, here are some things that you can be a part of, I think is a great thing. And it is one thing for which I would commend Esotericon. So speaking of the larger communities, and we'll move it into Freemasonry a little bit more. How are things right now in North Virginia? It looks like on my Facebook feed, anyways, most lodges in the States have started meeting again in person. Is that happening with you guys?
Yep.
We never stopped in Virginia. Some of my other jurisdictions went dark. We just did the less people, limits on people's masks, social distancing, but everything, to my knowledge, opened back up on June 1st here, to where I just had my stated a couple of days ago. No mask, no social distancing. Everybody was hugging, with vaccines, of course. But yeah, everything's pretty much wide open here.
Back to full capacity, I think, right now.
Good.
It's
We
nice.
are at in Ontario, we our in-person meetings are still suspended till, as of right now, September 1st. And I'm not, for the record, I'm not shitting on anybody. Every jurisdiction kind of has to figure it out as best they can. I know in Ontario or in Canada in general, unfortunately, we've just had less vaccines delivered. So our vaccination rates are just a lot lower than in the States. So I understand, why Grand Lodge is making the choices that they're making, and why the government, makes their choices. So I'm not shitting on them. At the same time, though, it's great to see Virginia back up to full capacity. And yeah, it's awesome. I'm just happy to hear that you guys are back to full capacity.
And able to do. Oh, sorry, Joe. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna comment. I have a lot of coworkers and people that I work with that are in Canada, and they're hearing now that you got. I know one guy in particular. He went to register a month ago, and his vaccine is scheduled for October. I'm like, oh my god. Whereas like by me, I can go across the street to the CVS and just walk in and get a vaccine, and I'm like, wow, this is amazing. But yeah, I've heard a lot of my Canadian friends are saying it take months and months and months to get vaccinated.
And who, not to get political, but I do wish our government did a better job at acquiring vaccines, but I also have no idea how that stuff works. Like, is it just because you guys have a bigger population? Like, that's my biggest beef in the Masonic sphere right now is when you look on social media, there's a lot of like, why is it that this jurisdiction is doing it this way, but this jurisdiction can't? And it's like everything is so different, and we're all just kind of muddling through. I take it as, the fact that, Virginia, Texas, wherever it is, Florida, are back open full, right? I take that as a good sign because it means Ontario is on its way. It's just a matter of getting the vaccination picked up. So, just everybody be patient. We'll get it done when we get it done. And in the meantime, we still have the online events. We're having a virtual beer and cheese tasting with Harmony Lodge, which is a chance to support a local business. Chapter 2 Brewing is putting together packages and delivering them with local beers. So there's lots of different things that can be done, which I also think is far more productive than shitting on Grand Lodge because they haven't opened us up like Florida, for example. Not to get personal about anything, but that's just my 2 cents. But yeah, I'm happy to hear. And has attendance gone back to pre-pandemic levels? Any drop off or any increase?
I can't. I know. Kevin's master at his lodge, and I know he's been meeting throughout the pandemic. But we had our first full stated on Friday, and we probably had twice the amount of people that we had pre-pandemic show up. I think people were just so excited to get the hell out of the house and go have a meal and sit with their brothers and listen to minutes being read. They were just super excited for it.
I'll even take minutes being read.
Yeah, seriously, we were surprised. We had double our average attendance.
Yeah, our numbers are going up. We, our lodge space is fairly small, so during all of this, we limited it to just the officers of the lodge, and we kept it to strict business. And then education, we were doing education virtually through monthly Zoom sessions, which I think will probably likely continue in some form or another. But I think the biggest excitement for us is just the fact that we're able to do degree work again, because degree work was shut down throughout except for the 1-day conferrals we did. So now that we're allowed to actually confer degrees as a lodge again is exciting people. So, getting together for practices and getting ready for that. We're getting really good involvement from the membership, which is good.
Yeah, I wonder if Freemasonry before the pandemic, kind of suffered from like, the side chick phenomenon. This idea that like, well, it's always going to be there. So yeah, because how many guys, so things shut down in person in Ontario in March of 2020. So how many Masons in February, missed a meeting with the thought of, I can just go in March, it'll always be there and I can miss meetings without having to worry about, and you find out that not only, no, you can't go in March, but no, you can't go in person for the next year and a half, basically. And maybe, I don't know if it's the same thing in Virginia, but maybe, that whether it's no meetings or reduced capacity meetings, maybe, it reminded some guys that actually I can't always count on an in-person lodge meeting. Things can happen outside of my control, and I better schedule the time to actually attend. It's easy to take something for granted when it's always there. So let's end with this one more time. I'm going to remind everybody: get your tickets for Esotericon. Is it June 12th every year?
No.
All right. So
No,
for this year, it's June 12th. And then pay attention, because you guys are on Facebook, all that stuff, right? Pay attention. Next year, is it always around the same time? Always in June, usually?
Yes. In
It
June,
is.
we try to go around Father's Day, so we don't want to
Right.
double up, Father's Day. So wherever that falls, we try to go around that before or after.
We
And
made
we-
that mistake year one.
Yeah, we had a Father's Day weekend. It was rough, but we'll announce next year's at this year's event. So
Okay. So then, if you're going
At the end, so sorry, Cameron, at the end, so make sure you stick around for the full Esotericon. Elsewise, you won't know when we're going to be having it next year.
Yeah,
Good
because we're never
advice.
going to announce it again.
No, we're not.
So there you go. Stick around to the end of Esotericon so you can get that information. And as Joe said, next year, knock on wood, barring unforeseen circumstances, it will be in person. And virtual is great. I appreciate all the work people are doing for virtual, but also, like Joe said, there is something special about doing these events in person. So if you can make it there in person, go for it.
and brother, it's not to say that we won't have a virtual component, but our hard and earnest goal is to be in person and shake hands and hug again and just get back down to that year one vibe. So, but that's not to say that if you live far away or don't have means to travel, that you can't participate with us either. So, but wait till Saturday.
There you go. All right. Check out the description. I always mention, like, comment, subscribe, etc. Share the video. Go to Patreon. Find us on Spotify. I'm just on Clubhouse. That's fun. I saw Jason follows me on. We follow each other on Clubhouse now.
Yep.
You, I think it said on Clubhouse that you are interested in Bitcoin or cryptocurrency.
Blockchain.
I don't know what is that. Is that cryptocurrency? What is blockchain? Not that we're going way off topic now.
It's so it's what cryptocurrency is based off of, but its utility is not limited to cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency is a way to facilitate the transactional nature of the blockchain.
Well, I'll have to have you back on the podcast at some point, because I'm interested in Freemason and cryptocurrency. I've always wondered about that. If there's like some type of ICO or something that a Grand Lodge can do, or even just investing in cryptocurrency. I talked to a candidate for Grand Treasurer in Ontario about that, and he just said it's too volatile, that Grand Lodge was so risk averse that they would never consider any type of cryptocurrency involvement. But I'm an idiot. I don't know anything about money.
I mean, Grand Lodges have been betting on a losing membership strategy since 1959. So,
well, there you go. So why
that's
not bet
stability?
on crypto? I think it's an interesting idea. The basic premise of a crypto, right, is it's just if enough people value something at a sufficient amount, you kind of force governments to value it at the same amount is kind of the basic premise.
That's how most regular currency is nowadays. So it's really no different.
The only difference is that with regular currency, you have one particular body in the US, the Fed, that tries to influence and determine the value, whereas cryptocurrency is decentralized. So it's almost like Wikipedia in the way where it's self-regulating. But you do get, big swings. So John Ruark is the god of cryptocurrency. He's been doing Bitcoin for years and years and years. And it's funny because John, Joe, and I are all in a little, cryptocurrency, blockchain chat group where we just talk about the theory behind it.
Would you like to buy some Hiram coin? I got this great coin. It's awesome. It's going to the moon, and only for Masons. Hiram coin.
Well, then all right, John. Let's
the
hear it.
market cap is $300.
Can a Masonic jurisdiction or can Masons do a try to do some type of ICO or even just be involved in the crypto market at all? Would there be any benefit potentially to that?
Let's get off paper dues cards first, then worry about the rest of the
Yeah.
digital universe.
Let's start emailing minutes. Yeah, and then we can focus on crypto. All right.
I love my paper dues cards. I've got like 3 of them in my wallet at the moment. They're great. They're always I would like them to be laminated for the secretary. I'm the secretary. I should laminate the dues cards, but I'm a fan of having it in the wallet. But I mean, what would an electronic dues card be? Like a barcode thing you scan on your? Well, there you go, on the phone.
Yeah, right on the phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm opening mine up now. You may have heard of a little
Amity
app
should get
called
into
Amity.
that. Yeah.
Yes.
What is? I've not heard of that. What is it?
What?
Jason, tell him.
Amity is an app that's been around for at least 5 or 6 years now.
It's been a while for him.
And they are trying to bring identification and authentication of Freemasons into the digital age. They've made some huge strides within the past year. I don't know if you're familiar with the list of lodges Masonic. It's they have taken over for the publishers of the list of lodges Masonic. So they are now compiling and adjudicating the authorized list of regular lodges now. And it's we're not going to be able to see that, Joe. It's just an absolutely phenomenal app. We can hook you up with Jeremy and company from Amity. They're really cool, really down to earth, and they're making an app for Freemasons living in the digital age.
Yeah, shoot me their stuff. Throw a comment down on the video when it pops out, because that sounds like a very cool thing. I'd love to talk to them about it. No, I've heard of the list, and I've got an app like a lodge locator app or something to that effect, but I've never heard of the Amity. So I'm going to check that out for sure. And thank you guys so much. I'm sure you're all very busy getting ready for less than a week now. Yeah, June 12th. So it's interesting. That's the same day that registration opens up for electronic voting for Grand Lodge. So there you go, Ontario Masons. You'll be on the computer anyways registering. All you got to do is then just click one more link and you're right there at Esotericon. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much, brother.
Thank you.
Thanks, brother Cameron. See ya.